My goal in running for this position is to prioritize kids or to put kids first. And as your representative, that's exactly what my priority would be, to put kids first, to protect education, to support working families, and to work with the governor, not against him. And that includes ensuring access to affordable health care, preserving our natural resources, investing in the infrastructure that we desperately need here in Campbell County, and supporting our small businesses and family farms. We're getting a lot of investment in the north part of the county, thanks to Representative Rachel Roberts and the governor, but there's not as much attention here in the central and the southern portion. So I would love to be an advocate for every part of Campbell County to thrive and to benefit from this Kentucky economic boom that we're having.
Well, I think I've already have. And the fact that, when it comes to Northern Kentucky, my epicenter is District 68. And I was able to help secure approximately $34 million for infrastructure improvements. Also, I helped Senator Funky Fromeyer with the medical examiner's office and the state crime lab, and also to be able to bring about $11.5 million to the district for local projects, the Holly Hill Child and Family Solutions, which is helps the most traumatized girls from 11 to 16, and also $5 million to the Fort Thomas Sports Complex, which serves District 8 for Campbell County and our region. So currently, I serve on the housing task force during the interim, which is I'm the only Northern Kentucky caucus member on that. And that is a way that I'm helping the Northern Kentucky region currently. And I think if elected, I will continue to work for District 68, which benefits Campbell County, which in turn benefits Northern Kentucky. I did get involved with House Bill 561 to help create the Employee Child Care Assistance Program and designated child care communities. So again, that was a way to help Northern Kentucky. So I think they're all intertwined. I think a victory for District 68 is certainly a victory for Northern Kentucky, and a success in any district in Northern Kentucky or in Northern Kentucky is a success for Northern Kentucky. So I'd like to continue the momentum we created with my Autism and Education Task Force, which was House Concurrent Resolution 51. It was authorized by the House, but not approved. So we have a scheduled meeting with the Opportunity and Race Task Force, or not Task Force, but Committee in November to talk about early screening options and early intervention options for families who are in the autism spectrum disorder community. Also, and I just read a draft of the bill yesterday, I hope to propose a phase out of the car property tax that the state receives. So the state receives 45 cents in car taxes. So as we phased out the bourbon barrel tax, I think it would be wonderful that we phase out the state portion of the car property tax. It is certainly a way to put more money into the pockets of Kentuckians. And we've done a great job with the income tax. And of course, more people drive than work in Kentucky. So this would be a great way to help Kentuckians throughout the state.
I've got three top priorities that I'm really focused on. They're protecting education, supporting working families, and addressing the child care and the housing crisis. So those three things right there. Protecting education, I want to do everything I can to ensure our public schools are well funded, teachers are paid, and any kind of attempt to provide charter or voucher systems that drain money from those schools, that gets defeated. I also want to support our working families, which means raising teacher pay. It means fighting for fair wages for our workers, protecting the pension of our workers, our public servants and civil servants, and standing up for unions and labor rights. That's number two. And number three is addressing the child care and the healthcare crisis that we're all experiencing, which means expanding affordable childcare and creating policies that encourage housing development without harming small businesses or family farms. I believe we really need to review the certificate of need, but to do it in a process that's very careful and nuanced and brings everyone to the table. We need to protect access to healthcare, and also avoid oversaturation in certain areas. I myself was born in Harlan Appalachian Regional Hospital in Eastern Kentucky. It's the only rural and mountain hospital in the area now. It is an underserved area, whereas in a lot of places here in Northern Kentucky and Campbell County, there's almost an oversaturation. So we need to make sure that Kentuckians have adequate access to medical services in all areas, especially the underserved and undeserved areas. So I'm open to reforms, and if there are reforms that will increase healthcare access on one hand without compromising care on the other hand.
So certificate of need, I've kind of been on the outside looking in on that. And I've certainly drawn one conclusion that it's very difficult to change anything statewide on a perceived or real issue in Northern Kentucky. So the driving force in the conversation in Frankfort is Northern Kentucky, and really it hasn't had the appeal in the rest of the state, or at least from what I'm hearing. And so I've just kind of stayed on the outside looking in until something comes across my desk that appeals to the entire state of Kentucky when it comes to certificate of need. So I already voted on Amendment 2, and that is the fact that I voted to put it on the ballot. I have constituents that are for school choice, and I have constituents that are not for school choice. And overall, I'm for my constituents. And it's such a significant issue, Megan, that I think it's very important that our constituents have a voice and a vote. And I also think it's very important to be consistent. So my first year as a state representative, I had people coming to me saying, we have 32 states that have sports betting, we need sports betting. And we have 38 states that have medical cannabis, we need medical cannabis. Well, there are over 40 states that have some kind of school choice. So I think we need to have the conversation. And what I'm seeing, it's engaging the parents already. And I think at the core of a successful school system is to have engaged parents. So really my thoughts or my advice to the voters would be like it was when I was a teacher. I try to teach my kids critical thinking skills. I try to teach my kids to be independent thinkers. So to the voters, I would say become very informed. I would say consider source bias on both sides, and to cast a vote, cast your voice and what you consider to be in the best interest of the students in the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Absolutely. I'm voting a strong no on Amendment 2 because it's very personal to me. I'm a product of public schools. I taught at private schools as well. And protecting education for both of them is very important because the scheme that is being proposed will actually divert funds from our wonderful public school districts, Fort Thomas and Campbell County. There's a lack of accountability for these programs. There's not an elected board of accountability for a private school or a charter school. I taught at a private school. You don't get much parental rights as what is being espoused. There's also the threat of exclusion. And this is very real as well, because I taught at a private school and my sons were there until I was outed and I was not allowed to come back. And a year later, my sons were not welcome back at all. We do not want to give public money to institutions that exclude, even though private schools are great. But if you are open to the public, you should receive public funds. If you are closed to all children, all families, you should not receive public funds. That is part and parcel of America. It's also a threat to religious liberty, believe it or not, because these programs can provide government interference in our private schools. Because once government money flows into something, it's not going to be private for too long. They also provide a limited reach. Like Ohio, for example, 90% of recipients already go to a private school. So there's not this grand proposal and grand ideal that is provided. It actually doesn't provide those things. It's limited, it's exclusionary, there's not accountability, and above all, it takes public money out of public institutions to fund private exclusion. So I'm voting no, and I'm advocating for people to vote no on the amendment, but also to vote out representatives who keep proposing this, because they are fighting year after year, over a decade, to try to do this, all the way up to the point where they're now trying to change our Constitution to make this happen. So we've got to protect our schools. We've got to protect education, public and private. If Amendment 2 passes, part of my focus at that point will be what I'm already doing, which is putting all kids first. And that means doing everything I can to minimize the damage of that amendment and that means ensuring that whatever the funding formula is, it prioritizes equity and access for all students in all of our Kentucky communities. So that means my voice will be on the House floor asking, how does this put all kids first? Does this exclude? I will be a champion for access for every child, which means I will be verbally and vocally in opposition to funding going to any private institution that excludes, and that could be because of the lack of abilities, the lack of infrastructure, the lack of inclusion of certain families and students. If the premise that public money goes into public institutions, I will continue advocating for.
Well, I've had a career in private education, and my wife has a career in public education. So anything that I would vote on that you would be perceived or real as far as hurting public education would be a vote to hurt my wife. So there's no way I'm going to make a vote to hurt my wife. I haven't gotten that far, Megan, as far as what I would promote, what I would create. I was on here a couple of years ago, and I did have some, I guess, likes about the scholarship tax credit, because at the core for me is what do you do for the students who are trapped? Um, in District 68, school choice really isn't an issue. We have one of the top performing public schools in the state of Kentucky, and not far behind, another public school district, Campbell County. We have 7 Catholic schools. I think 4 or 5 of them are blue ribbon schools. But, ever since even when I was superintendent, uh, I was always concerned about what to do to break the cycle of poverty, what to do to put students in a better learning environment. And the only one that really gravitated to me over the years was the scholarship tax credit. I think sometimes some states call them the Hope Scholarships. But other than that, I really don't have any kind of intentional kind of plan for a school choice option. Well, I'm here to represent and not to have a personal agenda. So, and last fall, I did a survey in District 68, and one of the questions on the survey was to my constituents was, do you believe there should be exceptions for rape and incest and the safety of the mother? And a majority of the surveys did have yes, that they do agree that there should be some kind of exception. So if that bill were in front of me, I certainly would fall back to uh, my constituent surveys and then re-engage my constituents, because again, I don't. I'm certainly for the right to reproduce. I don't think abortion should be used as a form of birth control. But again, I am here to represent and not necessarily carry a personal agenda.
I talked to a woman in Alexandria this year who is a practicing Roman Catholic and has been pro-life her entire life. And she told me for the first time, she's scared. And she's scared for her daughter because, as she told me, what if something happens to my daughter like has happened to my friends' daughters? So it's a very real issue. And our mothers, our daughters are afraid. And so I believe that we need exceptions for rape, for incest, and for life-threatening situations for the mother. These are just basic protections that already should be in place to safeguard women's health. We know 2 years ago, Kentuckians rejected the total ban on abortion, including here in District 68. And it's clear that we need a very compassionate approach to this, especially these deep personal decisions where health is threatened. And we've got to do everything to put our girls first. And so, yes, I believe there should be exceptions. We're in a very interesting moment where it seems like the legislature is in a power grab where they are trying to strip executive power as much as possible. And I do not believe that we should significantly limit the governor's pardon power, especially right now. We need checks and balances, and we need an increase of transparency in our government. That's essential to our system of government, where no branch has more power and weight than the other one. And right now, what we've seen is a legislature that fights Governor Beshear at every single turn. Just imagine what could happen if they worked with the governor instead of against him, including the current state representative that I'm running against. We need to be cautious about removing executive power because guess what? No matter who the party in charge is, they need those powers and they need those abilities to protect our kids and to protect our commonwealth. So we need a balance of power, and that means that we do not need to limit the executive branch any further than that is already being attempted.
I think, you know, the pardoning powers should be approved by the legislature, which is, I think, what it currently has. So I think it should stay that way. So, you know, was speaking with UK's president, President Capelluto, a few weeks ago, and I said I don't want to get into the weeds on DEI. I said, but looking in from a leadership perspective, I think DEI, and I'm certainly no expert on it, but I think DEI got too big, too fast. And so throughout my career, whether as a coach or a teacher or a principal, you know, I'm a big fan of reassessing, reevaluating, restructuring. I'm not a big fan of blowing things up. So, you know, when I see universities making some decisions on DEI, most recently the University of Kentucky and Northern Kentucky University, you know, I think it's it's good that they are restructuring and reevaluating. I would say with 100% certainty there's some good in what they've done, but I think it's good that they're taking a long, hard look at their DEI services.
On the emblem of Kentucky's state flag are two people from different cultures, an urban gentleman and a frontiersman shaking hands and saying, "United we stand, divided we fall." That right there is an early rendition of diversity, equity, and inclusion. There was something so pivotal and divisive that our founders decided to put those two on the flag. Kentucky has always truly been, the spirit of Kentucky is diversity, equity, and inclusion. You can call it whatever you want, but united we stand, divided we fall. These initiatives are critical for creating that inclusive, welcoming Southern hospitality that we pride ourselves in. And it reflects the diversity of our state, the population of our state. We should be fostering environments where all students, regardless of their background, can succeed. I mean, my goodness, as a teacher, I had students and families from all across the political spectrum, a variety of diversities, And there is this place of embracing diversity on one hand and unity on the other, and they go together. And right now we have a climate that is attacking education, be it our college levels and our high schools, where there's this threat, there's this intimidation. I even read the NKU president today who is backing off DEI in NKU because of the legislation that the legislators are putting out there. This is harming education. This is harming children being global students. Teachers are supposed to open up the world to students. That's what I did. That's what all teachers love to do. And so instead of creating this culture of uniformity and you look different, so you can't be part of it, we need good old-fashioned Southern hospitality. United we stand, divided we fall. So yes, I believe that we need to promote DEI opportunities and not oppose them, and create a welcoming culture for all. Well, it's very evident as you drive through Campbell County that there is a deep need for affordable housing. We see a lot of investment in Newport, which also means gentrification, and affordable housing is removed as an option to our citizens, and that's unacceptable. We are in a housing crisis that finally both parties are recognizing, and we really, really need to do something about it. And so I want to encourage affordable housing development at the county level, at the regional level, at the state level. And that means balancing the needs of family farms and local businesses, not just continuing unrestrained development, which hurts small businesses and affordable housing. That means working with developers to create housing solutions that don't contribute to this unrestrained development that we're seeing, especially in Northern Kentucky. I'd also like to push for increased funding for housing assistance programs and policies that make home ownership more accessible for first-time buyers. I'm a millennial. I'm in the first-time house that I've ever built. I've got a hefty mortgage that I'm paying. I would love to see more people in my generation get the opportunity to do that. So across the board, I know housing puts kids first because that's a basic need. Kids need a place to live. And so it needs all of our attention right now, and I will give it mine as well.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, the only one on the Northern Kentucky Caucus that is on the housing task force. And, there are really like five levels of income level housing shortages. I think the word you've used historically is affordable. Um, so I think the good thing going for us is that we have a lot of data when it comes to housing. I mean, typically we don't have this much this early in the process, and we have a lot of it. I've heard throughout the interim from Louisville, Lexington, throughout the state, Northern Kentucky, different options, but it's big, and it's big. You know, there could be some pilot programs that we could look into, and I have done that throughout my career as far as pilot programs. There is no magic wand to it, and the word crisis is used often. And in my career, I would always say crisis equals change. So there certainly needs to be some change, um, but it's big, and I look forward to helping craft the recommendations regarding the housing shortages from the Kentucky Housing Task Force Committee. I do support the reduction. Um, if we can get to zero, I absolutely think we should. I think we're a model, I think, for the country, and the fact that we have triggers and that we're not going to do anything in haste. Now, I might be convincing them this next session to hold off because I want my car property tax, which is about a 180 million to $200 million source of revenue for the state. So I might be they're lobbying, let's get rid of this property tax on cars before we lower the income tax. But overall, I think I am for it because I like how it benefits people who work. And when we go to January session and we lower it to 3.5%, you will be paying as a Kentuckian 58% less in income tax than you did, just a few years ago. So that's more money in the pocket of working Kentuckians. And yes, I do support it. And I support the mechanism that's in place to make sure we don't do it.
I do not support this economic project and scheme that the legislature is doing. We saw it happen in Kansas a decade ago, and they're just barely recovering now. I do not support the total elimination of the state income tax. If you reduce those income tax levels down, guess what goes up? It's exactly what we're seeing. An increase of sales taxes and inflation and a diversification of the sales tax, which is hurting our workers, hurting our small businesses, increasing inflation, and hurting our economy. Just this year in the state legislature, they decided to not tax gold bars while keeping a tax on diapers. Those two things right there show the priority, but it also shows who it hurts. I don't have gold bars, but I've got plenty of diapers. It hurts me. It hurts families with kids. We need to do everything possible to decrease taxes, which means the equitable way is the income tax, not this explosion of sales tax that we're seeing everywhere. We need a balanced approach to taxation, really, that ensures the revenue needed to fund essential services like education, healthcare, and infrastructure is there, not just lining the pocket of big business, which is the effect that it's happening and having. So to prioritize kids in our economic policy means fighting in every juncture and opposing this project and this scheme to get rid of the income tax, so our kids and our families are not harmed by it.
Yeah, I just like to say in closing, to the constituents of District 68, it's been an honor to serve my lifelong home. Never did I imagine when I was driving the streets and the roads of Campbell County and growing up in Campbell County and either working in the farm or working at barleycorns on the river in Newport that I would ever be its state representative. So it's been an honor. Uh, it's a very hard job if you want to get things done in Frankfort. And I've been able to use every ounce of my experience as a teacher, coach, guidance counselor, principal, superintendent, consultant to bring successes back to District 68, to improve your quality of life, the quality of life of my family. And I would ask for your vote to send me back down to for 2 more years so I can continue to work that we've started these past 2 years.
All right, I'll stop this recording now.